keep them stupid and keep them self-loathing, and we
created a situation in Germany that was ripe for that.
Right,
I mean, the
exactly.
crap that went on after World War I.
And
yes,
it's always
we punished Germany, but we punished them so badly that they couldn't even help themselves, and so they started. Well, who are we going to blame? We'll blame the Jews.
No, but we punished them so badly that like after they punished the Jews, and after the Jews went to Israel. The Jews.
Well, that's World War II. I'm talking about World War I, which is what made World War II possible.
What I said is after World War I, they punished the Jews, and then after they punished the Jews, in World War II, the Jews went on to punish the Palestinians.
Right now, it's very interesting.
When does that kind of a thing?
You see that when with kids who are beaten by their family, and then they get into a relationship and beat someone as well. It's not entirely sure how to stop it.
My fear isn't other countries. My fear is our country, where it may, because it's been so long since we've even had a peaceful revolution of any sort. It might take something on that scale for us to get things fixed.
It took the 60s. I mean, as much as I hate the hippies and just think they started something, didn't have the nerve to finish it, I do believe they started something, and they had to be in your face, and they had to throw some things, and I hate to say this, violence certainly gets you noticed.
But thank God for the hippies. It was just that. You know what I mean? With the civil rights situation, there was violence. There was people being killed. And that's the last time our country had. There's a lot of problems we have. Our middle class is gone. People are.
Our middle class in Manhattan.
We're the single most hardworking culture on the face of the earth, and our government gives us nothing for it. Richest country in the history of the world, and we get nothing.
We still don't go out and vote. If the middle class vote,
we get nothing for it.
We don't. The less we vote, the more right politics stays. That's why Adams wanted the Immigration Act. Be 14 years before you can vote. But if everyone voted, if everyone had voted, we would have not had this problem.
You want to show this to schools?
Yeah. Schools.
I think you should. I
I'm trying.
If kids in schools see this,
it's inspiring. I think
they'll think like, why did this happen? Why do I feel like I'm being cheated, and I don't know what's going on? And you might get sympathy for everyday problems. Everyday problems being like every day they are messing with the education of kids, messing with the education of kids, messing with the education of kids. And I know, like, just from growing up in a poor background, a year or two ago, these kids in Harlem, I'm working up in Harlem, and I see these kids, and I'm just thinking, like, man, these young kids, they don't got no job. They're going to go out and rob somebody. They're going to get pissed. And what did they do? They went out, they went to a bus station, they picked this Chinese kid out, and these 3 16-year-old boys started beating this Chinese kid up for his money. He ran away from them, ran in front of a bus, and got hit and got squashed.
It started with having a baby, to know that you can't get anything, to know that you have to start working, that leave your child 3 months old, and you had to start working, and there you see the other mommies that can afford caregivers, and you kind of wondering what the fuck is going on. That's what happened. And then you get pissed, and then you have aggravation, and then you have a child, and then you walking with the child, and then he's kind of want everything. And you said,
I want sneakers. I want to drive the same thing that this person's driving.
I can give you this.
We can start teaching our children at a very, very young age the responsibility of what it is to have a child. Any life you're going to bring in is going to affect many other. My mother was a single parent. She had to do all those things that you're talking about, but instead of getting angry, she kept trying to instill my sister and I with ways to support ourselves. Learn how to take care of yourself. Ask questions. Read everything. Be educated. Don't judge people on the way they looked. Judge them on the way they act. Now,
but also know that's a privilege too. I mean, I was in areas of Brooklyn that were so stupid and uneducated, and uneducated came violence in a fist. The smarter you are, the more you should know you have options.
Yeah. Have her children do that, but not every
America goes deeper than that. I mean, part of, you were just talking about your kid wants this, your kid wants that, is because that's a part of our culture. I mean, I was hanging out in Times Square with a buddy from back home, and he was talking about how amazing it was. I was like, it's amazing, but it's also sort of sickening. I'm standing here, they're shouting at me to buy shit that I just don't need.
Oh, my friends in India can't believe that people are poor.
Well, that's
like in India, because fat people poor are thin.
because here
Because they don't believe America are
When
poor
you're
because they're so
trying-
fat.
When you're trying to get,
She
trying to get your things, you don't get it.
But that's
And then they're taking like
really quickly. I worked at a job for 7 years. I was a sound engineer at Riverside Church. I got laid off in August. When I got laid off, we had moved to Edgewater, New Jersey. I applied for medical assistance and food stamps just because I'm like, oh, we're getting into hard times now. Do you know they made it nearly impossible for us to get along and help my children? There's no more middle class. Like they're trying to squash out. I swear to God, if it wasn't for her still having her job and me getting unemployment from New York, that, you know, possibly my kids would be hungry. And really, I remember when I was younger and I was stupid and I wanted something, I said, oh, this guy's got nice sneakers. Like, what would I do to get those fucking sneakers? I did a lot of stupid shit when I was a young kid. How do you stop these kids from doing stupid shit?
But, you know, it's always funny. The great writers of the 20s and 30s only wrote about class. Faulkner, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and somewhere in the 60s or 70s it went away. It became about color. It became about race, but it was always class that really was the problem. It was always those who didn't have and those who did, and the line in between. It was something we don't write about anymore about class. We seem to write on other areas.
To be in the United States, they check in what race you are.
Oh, I would bet.
And if you're white, if you are this, and if you're that, and if you're this. And I have a friend, she's from Kuwait, and she said, I'm not on the list. What do you want me to do?
Yeah. I think there's also a necessity for the United States to get some perspective, even in our time of suffering, because, like, I'm poor. I barely make my rent every month. But at the same, and my roommates are all the same way. But at the same time, in our apartment, each one of us have a computer. We can't afford the internet. Like, American poverty isn't necessarily the same.
Much different.
It's very different. But we're kind of like spoiled babies. Because we're like, I'm poor because I can't get a new iPhone. You know what I mean? It's like there's a perspective there that needs to be adjusted, but that comes from the consumers, and we want so much stuff that we just don't need. But we should also have, when we should be more upset about the fact that we don't have health care, or that our government won't do anything for us, or that we still allow the insurance companies to take over health care when their job is to not help us.
And
that is their job.
A brand new commercial with these lovely actors of color all smiling because they got to do a Geico type thing and decide which type of health care they wanted. It was one company trying to act like it was two companies competing for a lower price. It was one company, Aetna. They're Satan. I'm convinced they're all Satan. I do. I just think they're horrible.
I bumped into a German girl in the city at one point in time. We ended up walking and talking for the night. And she said that in Europe or in other countries, they're laughing at Americans that do not want universal health care. Here like the rest of the Western world has finally got that figured out, and we're like, no, we will not have that. And it doesn't make any sense.
What the healthcare company did was spend $8 million a week to make their campaign look like Obama's grassroots campaign by giving you $200 to start a 201k called a not-for-profit, America First. They imitated that, and they said, go act up. And the dumbass people on social care systems and Medicare acted up, saying, take your hands off my Social Security, government. I'm like, the government gave you Social Security. My mother complained about it, and she's on Social Security and Medicare. And I'm like, are you nuts? That's what they did. That's what the corporation does. That's what 1984 is about. It's not. It's about keeping in line.
We just need to get rid of this two-party system.
But it wasn't party against party. It was the very wealthy using the dumbass version of the party who lost. Who were sore losers. A bunch of crackers who didn't, who were broke. Middle class who didn't get these fundings that African Americans can get or blacks or Koreans can get. That they can go in and they're middle class broke. And they went behind them and they were so damn dumb it worked. $8 million a week they spent on this campaign to stop a public option, not even. This is how scary the corporations are. It's not left or right, it's corporations. Sure. And you know why there's a left or right in the news? Even Jon Stewart said this. Fox got a lot of ratings being left, right? Yeah. They imitate that at MSNBC so they can get ratings. It's about the money. They're like, we're just going to keep going more right as you go left. This is all about the money. Absolutely. And it's a quarterly share and it's corporations. I mean, I hate to get, George Orwell on you, but that's the bottom line. They created the mess we're looking at. Well, someone said, what if there was a reasonable news company that actually showed reasonable news? I don't know. But I got to tell you, Paris looks really nice. Paris looks really nice, and so does Montreal and
Educate our
Vancouver.
children.
You know,
Well,
yeah.
that's how my
that's
my
your-
parents